Hey everyone, Rob Ryder. It's November 14th, 2012. It's like my 80th video. I'm really tired of doing them. But along the way on this journey, pushing into that cloud of unknowing, looking for answers, eventually you hope to find the wall, follow the wall, find the door. And here recently, because of the grace of God, I've had some blessings bestowed on me. Some personal, some I can share. So, because I want to go visit some coral. God, I love coral. I'm here in Michigan. It's cold. I want to go be warmed by the coral. So how do you get there? Well, we got to get out of the mess we're in. Let's see what we can do. This is very, 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 very interesting. It's a short act in the Michigan compiled laws. Carrying on business under assumed or fictitious name. It sounds benign enough. But, stay tuned. You'll see what it did to you. So, an act to regulate the carrying on of business under an assumed or fictitious name. Certificate required to carry on business under assumed name. Filing, form, contents, fee, execution, acknowledgement, exceptions, yada, yada, yada. Number 1, a person shall not carry on, conduct, or transact business in this state, small s state, under an assumed name, under a designation, name, or style other than the real name of the person owning, conducting, or transacting the business, unless the person files in duplicate in the office of the clerk of the county or counties in which the person owns, conducts, transacts, intends to own, conduct, transacts business, or maintains an office, a certificate on a form furnished by the county clerk, setting forth the name under which the business owned is or is to be conducted or transacted, and the true and real name of and address of the person owning, conducting, and transacting the business. You're going to tell them you're the owner. And we're not quite ready to go this form yet, but this is kind of what it looks like. Every county has one certificate of persons conducting business under assumed name. Got to find a fee of $10. This one happens to be for St. Joseph County. So it goes to the county clerk. It doesn't go to the register of deeds. This is at the county. And I was talking to Bobby about this last night, and so he went and looked, did some research online, and found a book where it talks about this. And so every state has some version of this. I can't say everyone. I didn't look at every page it was talking about, but it was showing how all these different states use this particular thing, assumed or fictitious name. It's worth looking up. So what do you need to do? At the time of filing the certificate, the person shall pay the clerk a filing fee of $6. The certificate shall be executed and duly acknowledged by persons owning, conducting, intending to conduct the business. Okay? The certificate shall be executed and duly acknowledged by the person. This is by you. So it needs to be acknowledged. The selling of goods by sample or through traveling agent or traveling salesperson or by means of orders forwarded by purchase through the mails shall not be construed for the purpose of this act as conducting or transacting business so as to require the filing of the certificate. Okay, so shit through the mail doesn't require this. The county clerk shall certify the duplicate and return it to the applicant. As used in this act. What is a person? Well, person means one or more individuals, partnership, trust, fiduciaries, or other entities capable of contracting, except corporations and limited partnerships. So this is not for a person. They're not talking about a corporation. They're not talking about a limited partnership, right? It's an individual. Address means the residence or principal business address of the person. So you got two persons, actually. You got a legal person, your all cap letter name, and a natural person, your upper lowercase name. A charter county with a population over 2 million, okay, they can charge a little more. We've got more than 2 million people. All right. Certificate use of assumed name authorized for 5 years. Imagine that. You have to renew this every 5 years. Renewal, certificates, filing form. Okay. The certificate, when acknowledged and filed as required in Section 1, authorized use of the assumed name for 5 years. Right? So your assumed name, name of your business is your all cap letter name. That's an assumed name. And down here, you're going to put your natural person name. All right, so here's the name of the business and the address of the business, and I think this is just the road name and road number. Mailing address if different. Okay. Now this may be the entire address because that's a mailing address, but if it isn't, I don't know that you need to do that. Because down here you're going to say that for myself, I'm in Oakfield Township, and this goes back to looking for domicile in the townships. What you're doing is you're telling the county that you're alive, that you're the owner of this property, and that you're domiciled in the township. And it says, so the township of, and that's where the county would go here. But it doesn't have anything to do with the state, right? It doesn't say anything about the state. Nature of business. Jeepers. Well, what would it be? A banker? No. Other. All right, what is the nature of your business? Legal person. Is that the nature of a business? Yeah, we can always ask the clerk. And then down here, you would put your information. Signatures. All right, here's where you're going to acknowledge it before a notary. Okay. So, very simple to do so far. Let's see what else we can find out. Okay. If before the expiration date, a renewal certificate on forms to be provided by the county clerk, right? These things come from the county clerk, is filed with the clerk and a fee of $4 paid, the renewal certificate shall extend the right of use of the assumed name for additional 5-year period. See, in Michigan, if you're not seen in 5 years, you're presumed dead. This is how they're doing it. I'm sure that the states where it's 7 years, like the SESTA KV Act, right? These things will have a 7-year time on them. All right, so they're good for 5 years. Well, okay. And you can renew it every 5 years. Between the 16th and 30th day before the expiration, so 2 weeks before it's expired, the county clerk shall mail to the person a certificate. Will expire renewal certificate blank forms. Okay, so they're supposed to send you the forms within the last 2 weeks of it expiring. Telling you when it is, okay. And failure to file a renewal certificate and pay the fee of $4 before the expiration date shall on that date constitute abandonment of the assumed name. So I think that the original one of these that you got is your certified copy of record of birth. Mine's got a big ass gold seal on it. Right? That this was the property being given to me, making me the owner. It was the original certificate. Well, I never renewed it. All right, so I'm doing business without a license. I wonder if that could be a problem. Let's find out. Okay, because if you don't, shall on that date constitute abandonment of the assumed name. You just abandoned the frickin' property. Right? So now anybody can go in and claim that name and just claim a position because it's an assumed name. It's not you. That's how they get your property, through abandonment. The notice required in this act shall be mailed by the county clerk to the last address of the person or persons whose certificate will expire as stated on the original or renewal certificate. So we're going to make sure that we get our address correct and tell them, okay, when you send the notice, what address you sending it to. 6 years after the original renewal certificate has expired, the county clerk may destroy the certificate. 6 years after an original or renewal has expired, the county clerk may just, okay, so these things have to last for 6 years. Assumed name certificate, filing period, rejection by county clerk. Persons now owning or conducting such business under an assumed name or under such designation referred to in Section 1 shall file this certificate within 90 days after this act. This is 1907. We're well past that. Notice from the county clerk and persons herein owning, conducting, transacting shall, before commencing said business, file certificate in the manner herebefore described. Got to go file the damn paperwork. The several county clerks of the state are hereby authorized to reject any assumed name which is likely to mislead the public, or any assumed name already filed in the county, or so nearly similar thereto to lead to confusion or deception. So I wonder if somebody's using your name right now in the county clerk's office. You're going to find out when you go put one of these in. Because they do it for a little bit of time, I think, as we'll see. Whenever an assumed name concern has changed or changes its place of business, it shall be the duty of the person or persons conducting such business to file with the county clerk, with whom the certificate of renewal certificate required under provisions. Yeah, okay, a certificate stating the change in business location, which certificate shall be attached to the county clerk to this certificate, renewal certificate. Basically, change address, right? If you move, you need to tell them what your new address is, or you won't be in compliance with the frickin' law. And you do it to the county clerk. All right. This is how we're seen alive, folks. I'm telling you. And in case the business location is changed to some other county or counties in the state, to file the assumed name certificate or renewal certificate required by the provisions of this act with the clerk of such county before doing any business in such county. It's the first thing you got to do. Change your address. You got to change. If you're moving, whatever, you got to take it to the county before you do any business. You have to tell them you arrived. Whenever an assumed name concern shall go out of business, it shall be the duty of the person or persons who have conducted such business to file a certificate with the clerk of the county or counties which concern transacted business. This is the death certificate of the continuance of operation of business in such county or counties, which certificate shall be attached to the county clerk to the certificate renewal filed provisions under Section 1A of this Act. All right, so if you had a loved one who passed away, this is why you give them a certificate into wherever their domicile was at their death. And now until that's done, see, right now everybody's death certificates, I don't think that they're with the county clerk, they're with the Register of Deeds. Or they haven't even been registered, they're sitting in somebody's drawer. What you need to do is take it to the county clerk and say the business has been shut down. Okay. So that's what happens when they go out of business, when somebody dies. Upon request of payment of $2 per copy, the clerk shall supply. Okay, so you get copies for $2. Okay, certificates, alphabetical index. Okay, next step. The county clerk shall keep an alphabetical index of all persons filing certificates provided for in this act, and for the indexing and filing of certificates shall receive a fee of $10. Don't know why they cut off that way. A copy of the certificate duly certified by the county clerk, in whose office the same is filed, shall be presumptive evidence in all courts of law in this state of the facts contained in the certificate. It's the county clerk who is the office of the recorder, at least at county level, and that's where the circuit court is. Well, whatever the records say in the office of the recorder is what the law is, and that's what this has just said. If you were to go look up recorder in Wikipedia, you'll find a thing. Wikipedia, it'll say recorder, parentheses, judge, I think. Read what it is, right? It says in there, whatever's in his office is what the law is. And right now, we don't have our ownership in that fucking office. Excuse my French, in that office. I'm getting excited. Upon the panel, a payment of $10, the payer shall be entitled to. Okay, so you get some copies. Going to cost you $10, right? So it looks like you have to go fill the form out and then tell them you want to have it indexed. If two or more persons file a certificate to carry on a business under the assumed name, the certificate shall be prima facie evidence of the contract of partnership. So if you and your wife, when you and your wife get married, you need to go because you just started a new business. Right? Now you have this joint account of the union of your two estates. So you have to do it when you're an individual, and probably as an individual, and you have to do it as a married couple. Every person who is a non-resident of the state upon filing a certificate certificate provided for this act shall file an irrevocable consent that actions may be commenced against the person in the courts of this state by service of process or pleading authorized by the laws of the state of the county clerk, whose office the certificate and consent are filed for. The filing of the consent, $2. Okay, what does all that mean? Well, what that means is, if we were using this form, right? Since this is a fictitious entity, the name of the business, then anybody can be down here and say it's their property. Right? They're going to go claim the name. It's abandoned property. Somehow they're doing this now, and they're doing it because they say they have power of attorney. Right? So, all this says is, it says owning, conducting, transacting. So you don't need to be the owner. You could just be transacting business under the name. You would be doing it as an authorized representative because they have a power of attorney. So they think. But they can only do that if the name isn't being claimed, if it's abandoned, right? If somebody else already has the name, then they can't do that. So this way they can't go collect your stuff anymore. They can't claim the name. You did. Claim the frickin' name. It's your property. The county clerk shall keep a record of each process and the date and hour of service. Okay, and then notice the service, the copy of the summons shall immediately there be served upon the defendant personally by the sheriff constable of the county in which the defendant resides. Okay, so, because if somebody else is doing this other than you, well, he's going to have his own address. And they're putting in this self-confession paperwork. So I'm going to call it. Right? Because they're a non-resident of the state. If they're not from here and they're going to come claim that name, well, they got a problem if you ever show up. Okay, if the personal service of the notice, a copy of summons is had upon the defendant, the officer making the service shall state in the affidavit of service, which filed the court, have jurisdiction of cause, yada, yada, yada. Okay. These are all the things that would happen to them. And the affiant shall attach to the affidavit a true copy of the summons, a notice served and return receipt of the defendant, and shall file the affidavit and attached papers with the court having jurisdiction of the cause. But they can't do that if you've claimed the name. Now, this for people in Michigan, right? We got townships under this, right? And this goes back to, if you did this right now, this would make you part of a body politic, body corporate. And that isn't necessarily good. It's good to be part of the body corporate, not part of the body politic, because as part of the body politic, you give up your sovereignty, and that's what happens at the county. That's why we were trying to domicile in the township, because in the township it's just considered a body corporate. And so the clerk of the court, if she had something against you, would have to send it to the to the township. They would have to serve you, and then you would go to the township to answer the summons. And it would all be done under oath, right? That this is the things where they can't bring things against you anymore that's not under oath. Because when you do it this way, right? When you say the business isn't in the state, it's in the territory, and you're under territorial law. You're under the law of the Northwest Ordinance. This is freaking huge. The circuit court of the county and the office of the county clerk, of which the certificate is filed, shall have jurisdiction and action brought against the non-resident person, but this provision shall not be construed to depriving any other court of jurisdiction. Anyways, if process is brought against something that has your all capital letter name and somebody else's address, she has these things on file. If they've ever tapped your name, she has for the last 6 years, because they destroy them after 6 years, all that action's still on file against your all capital letter name. And whoever stole your identity. Basically, that's what they're doing, stealing your identity. The certificate referred to in Section 1 in the case of person named in the certificate other than an individual shall state the nature of the entity in the statutory law. Okay, so then they got to identify it, document, subscribed, yada, 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 right? So if it's somebody other than an individual, in the case of any person named in the certificate other than an individual, shall state the nature of the entity, the statutory law, if any, under which. All right, got to understand that a little bit better, but it only applies to those who are doing it other than an individual, and I'm doing it as an individual. So, place, date, filing, government authority, identifying it. You know, you got to tell who you are. So they got to put in lots of information if it's other than an individual. The date of the last will and testament or trust agreement and the court, place, and date of admission to probate of the will, of the names and address of the parties to the trust agreement, and the name and address of each fiduciary and a partnership name and address of each partner. There's a lot of information to be had there. Can't hardly wait. This act shall in no way affect or apply to any corporation or limited partnership organization under the laws of the state, to any corporation. It doesn't apply to corporations or limited partnerships. Right? To me, you don't have, that's saying that there is no limited liability. We're going to get rid of limited liability. We can go after them lawfully. Under the laws of other state, lawfully doing business in the state, except as otherwise provided, professional service corporate. Okay, got to read a little bit about that. All that has to do with corporations, right? I'm not worried about being a corporation. I'm the individual. I'm the owner. Any persons or persons owning, carrying on, or conducting or transacting business who shall fail to comply with the provisions of this act, pay attention, shall be guilty of a misdemeanor, and upon conviction thereof shall be punished by fine of not less than $25 or more than $100, or by the imprisonment in the county jail for a term not exceeding 30 days, or by both such fine and imprisonment in the discretion of the court. And each day any person or person shall violate any provision of this act shall be deemed a separate offense, provided, however, the fact that the penalty is provided herein for noncompliance with the provisions of this act shall not be construed to avoid contracts. Excuse me. Okay, so are you doing business? Why, yes, you have a checking account. Upper left-hand corner is your all-capital letter name with an address on it. You're signing down there that you have something to do with it. Right? Under your name where you sign a check, if you were to get a loop that you use for looking at printing, or a good magnifying glass, you'll see it says on there, authorized representative. That's what the line says. You're breaking this law every day. But it shall not be construed to avoid any contracts, right? However, if they wanted to, they could fine you $25, right? You're already guilty of contempt, is what this is saying. But any person or persons failing to file a certificate required by Section 101A shall be prohibited from bringing a suit, action, or proceeding in any of the courts of this state, lowercase state. If you don't have this in, you can't bring a suit in against the people that are screwing you. So for Tom up in Alpena, right, he just went down, he put in a case into probate, right? Rich put one in last year, got kicked out. This could be why. If you don't have this in, shall be prohibited from bringing any suit, action, or proceeding in any of the courts of the state in relation to any contract or other matter made or done by such person or persons under an assumed or fictitious name. Right, so the first thing we need to do is get ourselves certified, get our certificate that it's our property, and then we can go get our property. So, okay, all that said, so again, If you fail to file a certificate required by this section, you shall be prohibited from bringing any suit, action, or proceeding in the courts of this state. Small s state. Everything in the Michigan compiled laws that's good is lowercase. Lowercase state. In relation to any contract or other matter made or done by such persons under an assumed or fictitious name until after full compliance with the provision of this act, you can get forgiveness. Go put in the form. But no persons or persons doing business under a fictitious name or as the assignee or assignees, that's who they're going to, right? That's an assignee or an assignees is power of attorney. So no person or persons doing business under a fictitious name or as the power of attorney, therefore, shall maintain or prosecute an action, nor shall any order, judgment, or decree be made in any action heretofore or hereafter commenced in any court of this state upon or on account of any contracts made, or transactions had under such fictitious name after 1919, if the conduct of such business under such fictitious name has ceased, or if still conducted under fictitious name, then after a full compliance with the provisions of this act. Wow, what the hell that all say? So again, it's just saying you cannot maintain or prosecute any action, and we're trying to prosecute civil actions, real actions, personal actions. To claim the rights, title, and interest to our property. And all you're doing is giving them the information that is on your certified copy of record of birth. Okay, so that was the act. Now this is from this site where this came from. Certificates of assumed name, co-partnership, dissolution information. Anyone can request a certified copy of either a certificate of assumed name, certificate of co-partnership, or dissolution. Make a check or money payable to. Okay, persons who own, conduct, transact business in St. Joseph County are required by statute to file their business name in the county on the forms provided by the county clerk's office. Must be filed in every county where business is conducted. But not if it's through the mail, right? They just need to have your business address. The certificate of assumed name or certificates of co-partnership are not complicated, yet they are legal documents. Yeah. If more than one person owns the business, then the last owner to sign must sign in front of a notary. Okay? So there's only one person signing, right? You're going to sign in front of a notary. You're going to acknowledge it. And then there's this bottom portion here. This is going to be, right? This is the acknowledgement, and this is the authentication. Because it's coming from the clerk of the County of St. Joseph and the Circuit Court thereof. It doesn't say anything about it being in the state of Michigan in this line here. I have compared the foregoing copy of the certificate of persons conducting business assumed name with the original on record in my office, and that the same is a correct transcript thereon, and the whole of which of such original, and testimony whereof I have hereunto set my hand and fixed the seal of the circuit court. All right, this just made it full proof evidence, and it's going into her records, and it's going to show that you're the owner. And you're going to get your receipt number and a file number. Yeah, freaking big stuff. Right? So if you don't take care of your business, then you can't bring an action. And because it's considered abandoned, I think that somebody's coming in and they're acting as your fiduciary, your power of attorney, whatever it is, however they claim the abandoned property. That's why they need to get your signature on something, I guess. That's going to be their power of attorney to go tap your account. So you could come into town, right? There's nobody has the name right now. Okay, you're going to grab it, and you get all the business that you can generate from that name if you can get the guy to sign a piece of paper. And it can be assigned or assignees, right? So this thing could be assigned to numerous people, but all that information has been kept track of by the clerk for the last 6 years. None of them can say they're the owner. They can just say they have power of attorney. You're the only one who can say you're the owner. So what were the big things in that? Well, at the time of filing, you got to pay $6. You do it before the expiration date, you get to renew it for $4. Got to do that every 5 years. But 6 years after, if they haven't heard from you, they're going to destroy the certificate. Whenever an assumed name concern has changed its place of business, it's duty of the person conducting the business to file the county clerk with a certificate of renewal under provisions section 1A of this act was filed. In case the business location has changed to some other county or counties of the state, to file the assumed name certificate or renewal certificate required under provisions with the clerk of such county before doing any business in the county. If you're moving, you got to do it. You got to do it anyways. When the business shuts down, I think this is the death certificate. You need to give it to the county clerk of the county where your loved one died at. And that releases their inheritance to you. Now, who can do that? Well, whoever is made the executor of his will. I'm guessing. And they're going to keep an alphabetical index of all persons filing certificates, right? So anybody who's filed a certificate under that name, whether they're in state or out of state, who's ever used it for the last 6 years, they have a certificate for them. A copy of the certificate duly certified to by the county clerk and whose office the same as filed shall be presumptive evidence in all courts of law in this state of which facts contained in the certificate. It's going to show that you're the owner. You've arrived properly before the clerk of the court, who's also the registrar of chancery. She's over the records in the chancery, and that's really what we're changing here. The records in the office of the recorder. And every person who's not resident of the state shall, upon filing a certificate provided in this act, shall file irrevocable consent that the actions may be commenced against that person, because we're going to say you didn't have no contract with me, in the courts of this state by service or process or pleading authorized by the laws of this state. And so this comes back to, if you do this first, and Tom, it's not too late, just go do it and put it in. Say, hey, forgive me, I didn't have this done prior to. And go put it in that case you put in probate. So, good stuff. This is going to put in the office of the recorder that you're the owner of your all cap letter name, which means you've appeared before the proper magistrate, as Blackstone points out. And now that you're the owner, and the court is going to say you're the owner, they're going to authenticate it, and they're going to keep a copy of it. Nobody else can come in and claim the name. It's your name. So they can't come and claim it as abandoned property anymore. Yeah, man. Okay, well, listen, that's enough for this, right? But this is big. Big, 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 big. And stay tuned for more.